Alaikum. This is Ahmed Mohammed, the litigation director of the New York chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. And you are watching Care Talk. I'm broadcasting out of my living room here in Queens. Now, this program was created to provide regular updates and resources to the New York Muslim community relating to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis. I want all of you watching right now to take your mouse and follow our page so that you can get all the updates in the future. Take that one quick second right now to like our page and follow us so that you can continue to get live updates from us on a daily basis regarding resources and issues related to the coronavirus. Now, tonight is our 7th episode of Care Talk, and we will be bringing you vital information about recent federal legislation, the CARES Act, which is intended to help the economy weather the storm during the coronavirus pandemic. Tonight's guest is attorney and employment law specialist, Mahir Nasser. Now, Nasser is a Muslim attorney here in New York City, and I want to welcome Mahir to our show today. Mahir, can you hear me? Welcome to Care Talk. Mahir, I think you're muted. Please go ahead and unmute yourself so that we can hear the very important information that you have to share with us tonight. Welcome to our 7th episode of Care Talk. How are you doing tonight?
Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed. Thank you so much for the introduction and the opportunity to speak at this very important time in our history as a Muslim community, and also as individuals that are experiencing the difficulty of the situation that we're going through.
Mahir, how have you and your family been during this crisis? I know, you're a small business owner yourself, so having to adjust and close down your physical office to engage in social distancing to make sure that you, your family, your clients, your colleagues are staying safe during this time. That's got to be a difficult transition for you.
Absolutely. I think as any small business owner, I think that the biggest transition, I think luckily going into this, we became very electronically kind of made our system so electronic throughout the last couple of years, making sure everything was on Dropbox. We're using practice management systems. All of our communications are nowadays through the phone. The biggest addition to this whole thing has been utilizing Zoom as a form of consultations, and that has been very good. Now the court systems, whether you speak about the federal court systems or the state court systems, they're starting to adjust to these changing times. A lot of them have already implemented a lot of these things for attorneys as well as clients. So there has been a lot of, it's been somewhat of an interesting time for people to now really experience the e-generation that we're in. And I think it's been a positive thing because we're getting rid of the commute. We're getting rid of all of the lines that cause so much of a delay. We're starting to have a lot more efficiency, a lot more effectiveness. And I think it's great in that regard. And I like to look at things in a positive way because, as a business owner or even as an employee or as an individual, working from home, I think has a great benefit in terms of creating a work-life balance. I try to teach time management as a part of outside of being an attorney. And it's so important to kind of create habits and rituals within your day to kind of schedule things so that you can make this work from home situation work for you on an ongoing basis. So all of my attorneys, all of my staff is working remotely. It has been working out really well. I know, listen, there's going to be challenges. It's not going to be easy because not everybody is equipped for this. But I think that overall, it has been a great thing. I've had more time to spend with my family, my daughter. I feel like the days 9 to 5 are non-existent. I feel like we have a lot more to be grateful for in this time. I know that there's a lot of struggle for a lot of people out there with their livelihood, with all the stress that is happening, with the panic and fear that is being spread due to this very, very dangerous virus. But I think that if you look at the silver lining here, I think there's a lot of benefits to kind of go in terms of our behavior as human beings, as Muslims, as a community at large of coming together. I think that there's been a great deal of benefit that we can kind of derive from this experience. And I think going forward, knowing about our community and bringing our community together is going to be my prerogative and my goal, and being, reaching out to those that are out there to help out wherever I can is going to be my priority.
Well, Maher, that is an excellent way to look through this situation, always with a positive lens on things. I do want to say before we kind of get started to the brass tacks of the issues that we have you here today for, to everyone that's watching and to everyone that's going to watch this webinar and live stream in the near future, inshallah, that what we're doing tonight is for informational purposes only. None of us, we're both lawyers here on the screen, none of us are going to be providing legal advice to anyone. We are trying to provide information to the public, general information that may or may not be applicable to every single individual that's watching, right? So we also want to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have a question, please write it down in the comments section of this Facebook live stream. But I want to warn everybody that the Facebook live stream is public. So if you have a specific situation that is personal to you, the Facebook comment section is not the place to air those things out. If you have a legal issue that is really personal, really specific to yourself, contact Mahir directly, contact Care New York directly, and let us assist you in a confidential, privileged manner. That's really important. But we're gonna do our best to answer all the questions that come in. So Mahir, you're an excellent attorney. You've got some skills. Let's get down to it real quick. As an employee, what are the rights that employees have during this crisis in New York City, New York, or in relation to federal laws?
Yes, so right now, given what we're experiencing due to the coronavirus, there are certain overarching laws that exist. There are federal laws that we have to deal with in terms of our House, our Congress, those laws that we've been hearing about, the FFCRA, which is the Coronavirus Response Act. And now you've heard about the stimulus bill, which is the CARES Act. So all of these federal laws are essentially the overarching mechanisms that provide essentially what the law of the land is in terms of all states and how it's applied. Now, there are other laws that have also pre-existed, such as laws against discrimination, and they have some bare minimum requirements. And so when we go into looking at where in New York City and New York State, how much of these laws are more broadly expanded into providing broader protections for individuals and employees, that's what Governor Cuomo and the legislator has done. They've expanded it, and now we have obviously COVID-19's paid emergency sick leave, and additionally the access to family and disability leave. And so we obviously saw the different competing interests within Congress with respect to how this relief already had been provided in terms of emergency paid sick leave for businesses that are essentially fewer than 500 employees. So I'm going to break it down. I want to break it down into two things. Let's focus now first on New York State, because that is obviously more applicable to those that are within New York as employees. So if you are employed within New York, and obviously if you are subject to a mandatory or precautionary order of isolation or quarantine, which in essence pretty much everyone is at this stage within the New York State or greater area, and I think all of New York, because New York is technically on pause as a result of an executive order. In that instance, only essential businesses are allowed to operate, and those essential businesses have been laid out by the governor in terms of which ones will be allowed to work. So if you fall in, let's say, a non-essential business and you're being asked to work under this situation, that could technically be unlawful, and you may be able to file a complaint with the Department of Labor. There are certain exemptions, right? And those exemptions that business has to seek those exemptions to be considered essential. But now in terms of situations that have led up to this quarantine, a lot of people have unfortunately resigned from their position leading up to this. A lot of panic in the media was out there. A lot of people were concerned about contracting the virus, and employers were not shutting down soon enough. They weren't using accommodations such as work from home. And a lot of businesses are not really able to work from home. You know, you have a lot of retail businesses, you have a lot of stores that are unable to work from home. And so it really comes down to, are you as an employee able to do the essential functions of your position from home? And if you're not able to, and you have been forced to essentially close down, what options exist for you? Now, what the law provides in New York State is that you are entitled to emergency paid sick leave depending on the number of employees that that employer has. If it's less than 10 employees, you get 5 days paid or unpaid days. Depends on their net revenues. That's something that is really not relevant, but we can look into that deeper. If the employer has more than 11 employees, then you get paid 5 days. And if it's over 99 days, you get 14 paid sick days. Now, here's the thing. In that time period, every single aspect of getting this emergency paid sick leave or unpaid sick leave is that your job is protected. So you cannot be fired during this time. That's a very important thing to know. You cannot be fired for taking this leave. And keep in mind that any retaliation by your employer by way of not allowing you to take this leave, not offering it to you, could be considered somewhat of an interference in your rights, which in essence could lead to another claim. So in addition to that, now let's say you have exhausted the sick leave. Then at that point, then when you look into the New York paid emergency sick leave, there are certain things that you can avail yourself of in terms of what rights you have, whether it be family leave or whether it be disability leave. Now, if you look at the actual law, the legislation actually provides a definition of what qualifies as a disability and what qualifies as family leave. So for family leave, the family leave essentially applies for situations in which you have children, they have been ordered to go into quarantine or self-isolation because the schools or your childcare institution have all closed. At that point, you can avail yourself of family leave, even if in that situation, you are still employed and you're able to go to work, you can still apply for this family leave. In addition, separately, you could even qualify for disability leave. Now, interestingly, the way the law reads, and obviously this is based upon my own analysis, my opinion, do not take my word for it because this is a developing thing, but I feel pretty confident about what I read. In terms of the disability law, it is considered to be a disability under this particular law if you have been ordered by, let's say, the government, local government, to go into quarantine, and then essentially you are unable to work. So for instance, if you cannot work from home and you've been ordered to be in quarantine, you can avail yourself of disability leave. And that disability leave allows you up to something like $2,000 a week. Now it goes through the disability is usually now, it comes under, which is the new statute, the New York Paid Family Leave. That came up, I believe, in 2018, which expanded the rights of employees and individuals with respect to paid family leave, which kind of expanded further on what the federal law is, which is FMLA. So you have these rights, you can certainly apply for them. There is a form that you can find online on the governor's website or the Department of Labor's website that provides for emergency paid sick leave and then applying for family and or disability leave. You can also have a combination of both, getting up to potentially $2,800 per week, depending on what your pay rate is. So if you make up to that or beyond that, you'll be entitled to that max amount. Now, the way the process works is that you actually have to get this form. That form is a form that you can find online. It's an S-COVID form, which is under applying for short-term disability leave and family leave. When you apply for that form, you basically fill out your portion and then you submit it to your employer to fill out their portion. They have 3 days to respond. If they fail to respond within 3 days, you can submit that application right away. And at that point, the insurance company, and you can find out which insurance company is the insurance company that you have to apply for. Because when you go to the workers' comp board, that actually specifies a list of employers and which insurance is currently active for these disability benefits and family leave benefits. You can look at that and you can apply directly and file that right there. And then you should be entitled to get an answer in 18 days. Now you can get a affirmative answer of them starting to pay this, or maybe perhaps sooner. But if you get a denial, the mechanism is now going through the National Arbitration Association and Mediation Association, which is an organization where you can file essentially a appeal on their denial. And that's the process.
Before we move on to the next topic, which is going to be the federal legislation, I wanted to make a quick announcement. You brought up the work from home New York pause executive order. For our viewers who haven't seen, the original executive order was meant to expire on April 1st. I want to let everyone know that Governor Cuomo has extended the New York pause work from home rules until April 15th. So if you're a non-essential employee, you are required to work from home, no excuses, no exceptions, unless you're an essential employee. And your employer should know whether they're essential or not. They can look up on the governor's website to figure out which classifications, what categories are considered essential. And if you think you should be an essential workforce, you can apply via the governor's office to be recognized as such. So that's really important for everyone who may have calendared April 1st as the moment they can go back to work in person. That's no longer the case. You got to move it back 2 more weeks. And that's also subject to change as well. So Mahir, last Friday, Congress, the president, they acted lightning speed, $2 trillion plus. A lot of it really goes to big business. You can call it a bailout, you can call it a stimulus, whatever you call it. I think the little guy, when I looked at it through the 900 plus pages, we're really fighting for crumbs here. That's my opinion, right?
No, absolutely.
I want to know from you, what are the big ticket items when it comes to the employee perspective do you see in it?
Well, from the employee perspective, there certainly is a enhancement in terms of unemployment benefits. That I think is the biggest aspect of the CARE Act, right? The CARE Act is essentially a stimulus package that is meant to provide benefits to small businesses and trying to get them to get stimulated in terms of the economy. But in terms of now, obviously, every citizen is now entitled to the rebate recovery. And that is what everybody's been talking about, the check that you get into your pocket, depending on the circumstances of your personal, whether you're married or single. You'll get up to $1,200, up to $2,400 if you're a couple, and $500 for qualifying children that you have. Now, obviously, it depends. If you have any net liability in terms of any income tax liability, it would be reduced in accordance. So it's a lesser of scenario in terms of how they equate it. In addition, I think that as you go up in your income bracket, because it really starts at 70, it's up to 75,000 for individuals, 150 as an adjusted gross income for 150,000 for couples. As you go beyond that specific cap, they reduce it by 5% for every, I believe it's 5% for a certain amount. I forgot how much that was, but it starts to reduce. For every $100, it reduces $5. So in that context, it's meant to, but I think the bare minimum is going to be $600 for everyone at the very least, which is within
up to $99,000. So if you're a single person making more than $99,000, you're not going to get a rebate check, a rebate recovery check.
I think it actually specifies that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think what I read was that it's the bare minimum would be $600. They would reduce it down all the way up until $600.
We will
look into that further and provide that update.
Make sure to put it in the comments section. This is why this is informational purposes only.
100%.
Yeah, so just to recap what Mahir stated, it's $1,200 for a single individual, $1,200 for a couple, $500 for dependents, $2,400 for couples, $500 for dependents, with income limitations. So
right. So it starts to decrease. Well, the way that I read it, obviously, it's based upon your net liability, and then obviously the increments that make it decrease, creates a minimum point. That's what I saw. We can certainly update you on that and see whether that actually applies or not. Yeah.
Well, great. No, that's really important. And of course, I want everybody to know that this rebate recovery check is a one-time payment for individuals. Unfortunately, one of the saddest things, and it's really important for the Muslim community, is that certain immigrants have been left out of this entire stimulus bill. Certain immigrants have been left out entirely from this recovery rebate check. It's a very unfair system. We're really disappointed that Congress failed to take our entire population into account, especially, the undocumented immigrants who do pay income taxes, who do pay their fair share of taxes, but will not be seeking any type of stimulus checks coming in the mail for them. Now, Mahir, I want to switch gears real quick.
Sure.
Unemployment benefits. This is kind of where the biggest change has happened. Yeah. You talked about earlier about, unemployment benefits from the state side. How has the CARES Act changed the unemployment law, the unemployment benefits aspect? What's different now?
So here's the thing, under New York State, right, you're going to file for unemployment benefits if you, in your situation, remember, in order for you to qualify for unemployment benefits, you have to be involuntarily, essentially terminated from your position. In that instance, you would then be qualifying for unemployment benefits in New York State. Under New York State, you'd be entitled to, at the maximum, I think it's $504 per week, depending on how much money you make, but that would be the maximum amount. Now, what the CARE Act does, it basically expands upon that for people that are outside of traditional employment in terms of providing an additional $600 per week for a covered period from, I believe it's April 1st to July 1st. June
July
30th is
31st.
the last date, right? So it's a 4-month period of $600 per week. And this kind of brings people into the fold that are non-traditional employees. This deals with the freelancers, the people that are working within the gig economy, independent contractors, and they're also looking at expanding the pandemic unemployment assistance program, which is in essence providing access for self-employed individuals that essentially live in terms of based upon their self-employed wages. So they're going to use their prior tax return and their self-employment income tax as a basis to apply for that. Now, this is something that has not yet been obviously implemented. This is something that they still have to figure out how to implement. And this applies to all of the CARES Act. You know, they took, you know, it took a bit of time for them to get here. There was a lot of fighting. And I just want to kind of go back into what you had said before, Emma, about, you know, how this has been somewhat of a bailout for a lot of large corporations. Of course, we see that is existing, right? That they always do this. This is what government does. There's always these layered aspects to it in terms of giving us, the little guy, some kind of the little bit of the crumbs. But keep in mind, there's another aspect to this that I think is better. And the more that our community starts to raise its voice in making sure that politicians, senators, congressmen are kind of held to our standards of saying that, hey, we know what you guys are doing and we want you guys to stop it. I think that we've seen that in this bill. And I say that because, A, keep in mind, large corporations have a lot of employees. So that means that people such as you and I that work for these large corporations also gain the benefit. Our concern usually is, what's going to happen with that money? Or is that guy going to line up his pockets? Is management going to line up its pockets? Are there any strings attached to the money that we're bailing them out with? So the answer is yes, there's more strings attached under this particular legislation that provides a lot more restraint on their ability to essentially increase executive compensation in terms of buying back stocks, which was a big issue that happened in the last bailout, and also when the tax cuts happened. So there is a lot of benefits right now that actually help businesses and industries that have thousands and thousands of employees that rely on income from these industries, and we need this. So from that perspective, just kind of giving a holistic viewpoint, yes, it is not the best, but it's better than before. And I look at it that way because there's a lot more work that we as a community have to do in order to hold them accountable. So this is a great step in the right direction, but it still, we got to keep moving forward. So just want to bring that up because I think it's really important.
Inshallah,
in terms of unemployment benefit, yeah, sure, please. Go ahead.
I think you were breaking up a little bit, so let me go back to make sure we covered everything. So
Sure.
For unemployment benefits, if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is that if you go on unemployment, you're going to get whatever the New York State would have given you, plus an additional $600 per week. Did I get that correct?
Correct. And it's going to happen automatically. Once you file for unemployment benefits, you're going to apply for it. And when they enact this particular, when they start to enforce this law and when it gets implemented, automatically New York State's Department of Labor will automatically apply that $600 additional payment to you for that covered period of 4 months. So it does not last forever. Just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And the 4 months are April 5th through July 31st.
There you go. Right.
The other thing is you mentioned the pandemic unemployment assistance. Right. That is for individuals in the gig economy. That is for individuals who are self-employed, who have self-proprietorship, maybe a law firm that has one attorney or one attorney and a paralegal and a clerk.
Sure.
Who, maybe the attorney himself loses the job or an individual. They could apply for that and get assistance through the unemployment, through the pandemic unemployment assistance line. Now, here's a question.
Yeah.
Now, earlier you talked about the sick leave and the paid leave benefits, right? The question becomes, this is really a double dipping question. Can I get both? If I'm receiving sick leave, paid or unpaid, can I also go and get unemployment benefits?
So the answer is no, right? If you are essentially availing yourself of a emergency paid sick leave, the idea is that at that point, you should be able to qualify for the other two aspects under the New York State paid or family leave, which is the disability leave and the family leave. You're essentially saying that as an emergency sick leave, you're still employed. So you can't get these benefits if you're still employed. Unemployment is for those that have lost their job. And that's important. I just also want to go back to when we mentioned, I didn't really get the chance to mention the expansion of the additional benefits under unemployment. There's an additional 26 weeks beyond what the state provides of 26 weeks. And there's also now, as a result of the CARE Act, an additional 13 weeks on top of that, that provide an additional period of time for those that are applying for unemployment benefits. And now they're also still looking into, like I said, they're still looking into trying to enforce this law. And hopefully this is going to apply to those that are also self-employed, that work with freelancers, independent contractors. And so this is a great way to look at how our industry and our non-traditional employees, because that makes up a large part of our economy now. And they're finally taking a look into it and providing laws that provide for people that have been impacted as a result of this.
Now, Maher, a lot of the stuff, you've made it sound like it's very simple.
Not.
Well, it's a little difficult.
It is. It is.
If one of the viewers needs assistance, does your office help?
Absolutely. We've been throughout this time, guys, I'm not, first and foremost, as a human being, my first priority is to help my common brothers and sisters and all of humanity. I do not judge anyone on the basis of their ability to pay or not. That is absolutely not the criteria. My goal right now, as where we're in a situation, we are in a somewhat of a war zone, and helping people at this stage is the priority. If there is a legal claim of which we can provide legal assistance, then that is a separate scenario. But helping you and guiding you and providing you advice as to how to deal with the situation, we have been doing that. We've been putting up videos on our Instagram, on our Facebook, just to give people information so that way they can look it up and look at the sources and how to essentially be strengthened by the information. Being able to be independent and be able to have authority to fight for yourself under the situation is really what it comes down to. Our community is only as strong as the knowledge that it has. And it's important that people that are in the forefront and have the knowledge, who've done the analysis, impart that knowledge to all of you so that way you can be strengthened and our community can be strengthened. And that is where the goal lies, right? We want to make sure that we are an integrated, strong voice within our community. And it's important that all of us, and for me, if anybody reaches out to me, like I said, everything is free. There's no need to feel as if you owe me anything. My goal is to provide help where I can. And if I can provide legal services, that's another conversation. But right now, the first priority is to help you.
Thank you, Mahir. So for the legal services, if anybody needs it, how can they get in touch with you real quick?
Absolutely. You can reach me on my phone number, which is 212-600-9534. You can go to my website. I have a lot of information on the coronavirus. It's www.nisarlaw.com. And if you guys want to follow Instagram, you can obviously follow it. It's at Nisar Law. Same thing on Facebook, at Nisar Law. I'd be happy to help you because at the end of the day, like I said, it's important for all of us to recognize that this is a difficult time for everyone, and whatever information that you can help somebody else, is going to help our community and help people around. We need each other at this time. And I think that in any way that I can help, I'm privileged to be able to impart this information to you so that way you can benefit from it. Absolutely.
Mahir, we got one more topic, a few minutes left. Before we go that, I also want to share the website that individuals can go if they want to fill out the unemployment benefits application. So you want to go to the Labor Department for the state of New York's website. It's labor.ny.gov. And they're going to have a huge sign right on their front page that talks about COVID-19 and the unemployment benefits and the CARES Act. So please go there, apply, get the benefits that you need if you have been unemployed during this crisis. Next topic that we're going to discuss is very important, especially for small businesses, which is what is the small business relief that Congress has passed through the CARES Act?
Right. So Congress has passed essentially, which is really going to be expanding on the SBA loan option, right? Dealing with this particular disaster, there right now is a grant that you can avail yourself of on a streamlined process. If you go to the SBA website, you can avail yourself of up to $10,000 towards an emergency economic disaster relief. So you should definitely look into that. It's 10,000 and essentially it's meant to be a grant. So I definitely look into that as a basis. Now, what is within the actual legislation under the CARES Act, which deals with small businesses, that particular thing that they have created is essentially $350 billion that is meant to provide, financial assistance to small businesses. Now, the way it works is that it's based upon your payroll, right? Your payroll is been defined in a variety of categories. The payroll can be what you can include is your rent. You can include your mortgage payments in terms of if you own an office. You can include debt obligations for the prior year. You can also include up to $100,000 of independent contractors that you have utilized as a part of your overall thing. And so it's based upon a monthly average of the prior 12 months, whatever year you're looking at, average of that. So the monthly average multiplied by 4. That is what it is. A lot of people have been saying 250%, and I've been seeing that a lot. A lot of lenders have been putting that out. It's actually not accurate. The legislation actually says 4 times. The reason why people have been saying 250 is because that was what was the previous version of the law. So the law that currently exists is 4 times that. Now, in terms of what you would be entitled to, you get 4 times the average monthly of all those numbers combined. That's how it's defined in terms of payroll. So payroll includes rent, mortgage payments, debt obligation, commission. So you put all that together, get a monthly average, and then it's multiplied by 4. So that's 4 times that amount. Now you can use those monies obviously for your employees to make sure that there is continuity with respect to their employment. That's a very important aspect and almost a necessity to make sure that you get 100% of that forgiveness, which I'm going to talk to you about now as well. So you can still apply these payments towards the upkeep of your office in terms of rent if you have a rental lease. You can also do it in terms of your mortgages and any debt obligations that you have incurred in the prior year prior to this disaster. So that's something that you can certainly avail yourself of. So one thing to keep in mind, you're certainly going to be entitled to a forgiveness of this if you continue to employ the people that you have on payroll. So as a part of this, you have to also submit your payroll documentation. There's a lot of documents that you have to submit in order to qualify, in order to avail yourself of this benefit. And that documentation has not been released yet, but it's going to be hopefully coming out next week, we've heard. And there's going to take some time before they're able to actually release funds from this process. There's a lot of third-party lenders that are going to be authorized by this legislation to essentially provide their forms and kind of deal with this situation. So it's really it's very difficult to foresee how this is going to work. But what we do know is that this is what the legislation defines as what you're going to be entitled to. So it's an average of your monthly, the payroll aspect multiplied by 4, and then that amount is going to be up to $10 million. So it's up to a $10 million amount, and I don't know which small business makes that amount, but they do. So they're out there. But for us little guys, this is going to be very helpful in terms of the federal legislation. And that's something that's, hopefully going to be implemented in the coming days.
Now, I know New York City has also done a small business program. We're going to get into that real quick, but I want to go back and discuss a little bit of details. You mentioned the word grant. You mentioned the word loan forgiveness program for the first $10,000 is taken out through this small business loan program. Now, I know the SBA in this legislation has done something that's really different than previous loan programs. Number one, they've expanded it to include nonprofits. So nonprofits, in addition to small businesses, can apply for this money.
Yep.
And my understanding is that also independent contractors themselves can apply for these grants, along with sole proprietors and self-employed individuals. Did I get that correct?
I'm not too sure. And there's definitely a lot of different factors that provide for who is an eligible employer. that would qualify for the SBA loan under the CARES Act. It applies to many businesses and individuals that are sole proprietors or self-employed. I'm not too sure about sole proprietors and self-employed. I definitely think nonprofits are a part of that process. It's a little different with New York City. I think is that where we're going? I kind of got lost.
Let me make one last statement
Sure.
on loan forgiveness, because that's really important. We're a Muslim organization, and I want all of our viewers to know that, we have to make a disclaimer here from CARE that's really important, and that's CARE is not endorsing the small business loan program. We're not endorsing this program. Instead, what we're doing tonight, obviously, is just providing you with the information. And we're encouraging all Muslim business owners who are interested in the loan program to consult with their own religious institutions for Islamic guidance. For example, I know that, we're talking about loan forgiveness. My understanding is the principal is forgiven. The interest that accrues during that time is not. So you have to consult your own religious institutions to figure out whether that is permissible or not. I'll tell you yesterday that the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America issued a fatwa saying that due to the current hardship and the public need that's been caused by the coronavirus, that the loan forgiveness program is permissible. Now that's their opinion, that's their fatwa. You can review it at amjaonline.org and figure out for yourself whether that meets your religious beliefs or not. So Mahir, I apologize for having to interrupt you. That's a very important disclaimer that we have to say. And so the last thing we want to talk about, and I think we may have a question at the very end from one of our viewers, is what is this New York City small business program that you've tried to mention twice? And I've
No, not at all. So the New York City, there's two different options that are available. One of which is the employee retention program. The employee retention program is in essence meant to provide you, I believe, 2.5 times your payroll. And at this stage, it applies to those businesses that have 1 to 4 employees and can actually show a 25% reduction in their gross revenues. Now, the way that they've done this, and it's unfortunate because a lot of the people, a lot of small businesses that are being impacted by the coronavirus are going to experience a lot of the financial impact in this month, March. And as you know, banks only give out statements when the month is over. So the way that they're doing this is that they're using 2 months of this year, and then you give them 2 months of last year for the same months. And you also have to give them all of your records in terms of your monthly statements for the prior year, and then submit that and be able to document a 25% reduction. And so that is what you have to show. So that's for the employee retention program, and that's something to look into. Secondly, is the loan option up to $75,000. They really haven't. They've just, I think, recently put out information as to who would qualify, because previously the application didn't exist. I think the application finally came out, and for that, I believe it's, you can be entitled to 75,000 in that process. But you would have to go onto the website. It also applies to businesses that are between 1 and 4 employees. It's really meant for those businesses that obviously are impacted financially in terms of the rent, in terms of that. But keep in mind, guys, this is something that's really important. The employee retention program is meant to make sure that you retain your employees. And that's the basis of why they're providing this, so that people that are continuing to run their business, have been impacted financially, have the means to continue to employ their employees, so that they can have what really makes up a business, are the people that really, work within the business. Without them, businesses don't exist. So this is something that's available to you. You can go to the New York City website, Mayor de Blasio's website, that deals and provides information on this specific grant. Just to correct myself, the small business continuity loan is for employees that 99 employees or fewer, and you have to be able to demonstrate your ability to repay it and make sure that you have no tax lien or legal judgments. But ultimately, the same thing applies. You have to be able to show 25% decrease in revenue in order to be able to be eligible for it.
And for all the viewers, I know we've mentioned a number of websites throughout this episode. you can look through the comments section and we will post what websites you need to go to avail yourselves of the benefits that we've discussed. So we're not going to leave the Googling up to you by yourself. We're going to do it for you and give you the accurate information and the websites that you need to go to get the benefits that you need during this dire time for you and your family and your business. Mahir, I want to say, first of all, you provided some excellent information. You're running a really good law firm. There's a lot of law firms out there. And so while I have you, I want to ask you a couple of things that maybe you can impart some of your wisdom, some of your tips of the trade on what advice do you have for small law firms as they are coping, through the business struggle that is coming at them through this COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, I think this is a time where individuals need to kind of rely on their creativity. This is a situation where you should be focused on making sure that you're ready. You need to be making sure that you have all of your files and your computer systems equipped to be able to handle not only, obviously everything now is electronically filed, whatever substantive area of law that you practice. I think that at this stage, you need to make sure that you deal with people on the basis of using Zoom and video consultations. You have to be able to get on the phone with them. People like to have the face-to-face contact, and I think that's really important in our industry. So at this stage with the coronavirus, I think small businesses need to offer the ability to do video consultations, FaceTime, whatever mechanism that you can kind of create that human experience, which I think is really important for any potential client in whatever area of law that you practice in. I think that a lot of different areas of law right now have been really impacted in a different way. A lot of businesses such as criminal defense, bankruptcy seem to be seemingly getting the same amount of business. Family and matrimonial, given everybody is at home with their wives, apparently it's creating quite a conflict, and that's something that is still still apparently working well. There are also third party options in terms of arbitration, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms that are available to many people because the state courts have been obviously impacted and they've been slower. Federal court options are still existing, so you obviously have the ability to avail yourself if you have the ability to pursue a case to federal court. But I think that what I would definitely recommend for a lot of attorneys at this stage going through this is to really try to create and try to be kind of come out of their box, right? This is not the time where you kind of say, I only do this and I can only do this. This is the time to expand and try to go into those areas where you can evolve yourself as an attorney to help people in the community, whatever it may be, whether it be immigration, whether it be family disputes, whatever it is at this time, it's important to be versatile and come out of the niche and kind of be able to help the broader community.
Well, that's excellent advice. Always thinking outside the box is very important, especially during times of crisis. We have one last question before we have to end our episode tonight, and that kind of really takes us back to what we started with at the beginning, which is employment discrimination.
Yep.
Now, COVID-19 has brought about record numbers, unfortunately, of discrimination against Asian Americans all around the country. We're talking hate crimes, bias incidents. What I want to know from an employment setting is that people are working remote from home for the most part, unless you're an essential worker. Have or do the employment laws, right, employment discrimination laws that have always been in place, do they no longer apply because now we're working from remote? Or do they continue? And if so, how?
They absolutely do apply. I think even prior to coronavirus, we've had cases that have involved pregnancy discrimination, discrimination based upon people's disabilities, race, religion, national origin. These forms of discrimination within the workplace do not have to happen just within the place of where you work. They could also be happening when you're at home, when you're dealing with somebody in such a call like a Zoom call. So everything in terms of the federal laws under Title VII, which provide protection for you as an individual against any discrimination on the basis of your race, religion, national origin, any kind of disability that you may have. Obviously now the coronavirus is an additional aspect of you being able to, if you have symptoms, if you have certain underlying immunocompromising situations, you may be able to avail yourself of what you call reasonable accommodation. And so even if you're an essential worker and potentially you could risk somebody who you live with, you should have that conversation with your human resource department to make sure that you protect. I think right now is the priority for everyone is to remember that life is so important, and the priority to your health and your well-being is number one. The livelihood comes second. The work stuff comes second. Everybody has to be safe. After that, we can focus on making sure that we're able to work on making sure that our environments that we work in and whatever we're dealing with, that we are not being treated unfairly, that we are not being disadvantaged because of something that is something that's out of our control. And a lot of these laws that exist, not only on the federal level, but also on the state and city level, are there to protect you, even if you work from home. So absolutely, yes, the answer is yes. You have those rights. And at any given point, if you ever have a question about being treated unfairly or differently, obviously contact CARE if it's related to religious discrimination. Ahmed is a phenomenal attorney that has been fighting for the civil rights of the Muslim community. And if you ever feel the need to reach out to me as well, I'm more than happy to help in any form of discrimination that you face within the workplace, because at the end of the day, I do believe that everyone deserves a fair shot within this country and everybody deserves justice and equality. And that's the nation's foundation.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Mahir, for joining us tonight. For all of our viewers, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it here tonight, that our employment discrimination laws are still in effect. If you are being forced to go to work in an unsafe environment, you need to do something about it. You need to contact an employment attorney, whether that's related to OSHA, whether that's related to the American Disabilities Act, whether you're being discriminated against because of a protected status, your race, your religion, your nationality, your gender, and everything else that the state of New York and the city of New York protect under their employment discrimination laws, they still apply. If you're being harassed via Zoom, if you're being harassed virtually, via text, via email, whatever the case may be, if you're being treated differently because of your protected status, that is not going to fly with us. You need to contact CARE New York if that's the case. You can go to our website and file a report of discrimination incident. You can call us at 646-665-7599. Yes, our offices are closed because we are doing remote work, but we are still doing work. We're fully operational. And now we even do work at night because we're here at almost 8 p.m. doing this webinar for you. And of course, if please contact Mahir if you feel that you need some employment law advice and assistance and legal representation. Mahir, once again, you've been excellent. Thank you so much for providing vital information that our community needs. We have to know, number one, what are the resources out there that are available for our community members so that we can take advantage of them. These programs are created for all of us. And the only way that we're able to use them is if we learn about them and then go out and take advantage of them. So there are a lot of resources out there to help all of us get through this extremely difficult time. We have to take advantage of them, inshallah. So Mahir, thank you so much for being with us. I want to tell all of our viewers that we are doing our CARE Talk nightly at 7 p.m. And tomorrow we're going to have an episode. Wednesday we're going to have an episode. So the only way that you're going to know about all this information is if you like our page, if you follow our page, and you stay up to date to what we're doing. Sign up for our emails so that we can email you a link of this video right here in case you missed it, so that you can share it with your friends, with your family, with your colleagues, with a business owner that you may have. You don't want them to miss out on the important information that our brother Mahir Nisar has given us tonight. And so I want to say thank you to all of our viewers and see you tomorrow. This has been another episode of CARE Talk.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, everyone.